Well, let's talk now to John W.H. Denton, who's the Secretary-General of the International Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the programme. Good to see you. With the backdrop of continued tensions between China and the United States, how significant is this meeting between Presidents Xi and Biden?
Well, I think it's, as your correspondent said, this is a very important signal, I think, to the global world about the intention of the two, with basically the most important bilateral relationship in the world. But what I really like coming out of the meeting is the way in which President Xi has talked about the need for, and what he recognises coming out of this, of stabilisation. And I think the language coming out of President Biden around constructive engagement is actually really important. I mean, we're gathered here, I'm in San Francisco, because at the end, APEC is the most important region when it comes to global trade. It actually accounts already for 50% of global trade. And actually, do you know that 70% of outbound investment actually comes from APEC as well? So when we gather here today, I'm actually speaking after President Biden addresses the summit this morning, we will be urging the maintenance of focus on continuing to develop that global trade out of Asia-Pacific and removing barriers. We want to get rid of the protectionism that's going on. We've already seen something like 3,000 new protectionist measures in the last year. That has to stop, and we want to see leaders commit to what is important, both, I think, coming out of the discussion yesterday, as President Xi said and President Biden said, to actually continue to develop the world. That will only happen with a functioning multilateral trading system, and it's in the interests of the APEC leaders to ensure that happens.
After that meeting, President Xi spoke to US business leaders. How do you interpret what he said about China being a big market and also a friend to the United States?
Well, the reality is the economies are pretty well entwined, and unraveling that is going to be incredibly complex anyway. Even though we've seen a little bit of movement in terms of US engagement with Asia, in terms of from a business perspective over the last 12 months, principally in semiconductors, you can't wish away the supply chain intertwining that's actually already taken place. There's a lot that is actually critical to the development of the American economy, which rests on the continued growth of the Chinese economy. And so I think that's a recognition of President Xi, and it's something that business leaders in the US understand very well. And I think that's one of the areas that we want to focus on moving forward. And that will be improved and actually made happen by actually ensuring that we strengthen the multilateral trading system, that we actually remove protectionist barriers, and we get on with the business of growing the global economy.
Clearly some challenges remain, some points of difference. How do you think this meeting, though, has changed the shape of the US-China relationship?
Well, it's a positive step that we had dialogue between the two leaders. Let's not forget, this gathering at APEC is the most important meeting of global leaders before COP28 in Dubai. What we want to see there, of course, is taking the goodwill and the constructive engagement and the stabilisation that both leaders have talked about into that discussion as well. We want to see the opportunity for climate action as well coming as a consequence of this. And this is a very important area for the global world to focus on as well. And I know it's critical in Asia-Pacific as well.
John, great to talk to you today. Thank you so much for joining us. That's John W.H. Denton, Secretary-General of the International Chamber of Commerce.